Okay.
Now, yes. Try.
Okay. Okay. Do you see my presentation?
Yes, we do.
Thank you so much. My dear colleagues, I'm so glad to share my ideas. I think my ideas is tricky and complicated, but I try to I try to tell about my permanent interest into the sociology of emotions and to the questions of culture and issues of alienation. And I formulating this topic because the focus of my interest is transit of the uh, therapeutic culture discourse to the Russian context, to the Russian society during the last decades. And I like to consider this issue through the emotional logic of this therapeutic culture. Okay, I propose the following plan for my presentation, and I'd like to tell about the what is therapeutic culture and about emotionalization and emotional tone in social science and in the society during the last 4 decades, and I I will focus on the theoretical perspectives on these issues, and I'd like to propose to discuss the ambivalent character of the therapeutic culture and its contradictions through their special instruments, through the notion of the emotional norms or emotional ideals, which are I called emotional imperatives. Emotional imperatives. I'd like to discover some contradictions and paradoxes, and to describe the situation, and maybe to propose some directions how to research and how to analyze this, and to maybe consider some difficult questions about the post-Soviet emotional culture and the spreading of the therapeutic discourse, therapeutic practices, therapeutic literature, and so on, so forth. Okay, wait, I'm sorry. Now, I'd like to begin. I try to be short, and you can ask me questions about some maybe unclear issues. My at the beginnings, I'd like to characterize therapeutic culture. I think it's abstract general term for the process of cyclization of the society in Western world, presumably, uh, and the spreading of the scientific psychology and psychotherapy and pop psychology in different spheres of the societies in American context and in Western Europe. And the beginning of the formating maybe therapeutic culture, I think began in the middle of the 20th century. And you know very well that theorists of Frankfurt School wrote about it. For example, Marcuse and partly from about the therapeutic culture. The former wrote about the in negative tones, and from C in the therapeutic culture, the maybe salvation of the society, is the tool of the changing, reforming society, and so on. And but I'd like to focus on the emotional side of therapeutic culture, because therapeutic culture um, uh, give to the emotional experience the very special meaning, very special and great importance, great importance. And um, during the last decades, we see the really emotional tone in uh, late capitalist society. And in these societies, different agents used to involve emotional experience to the commercial life, to the public life, to the political life, and even uh, even in mm, um, not only in counseling business, but in big corporations, in government structures, and so on. And everyone talk about the, for example, burnout, depression, fatigue, and at the same time about mental health, self-care, self-realization, and so on, and so on. And you see, at the very beginning, this discourse is very ambivalent, and this is the key point of my talk, that this European culture is very ambivalent. And I'd like to note that now we can observe the globalization and transit of therapeutic emotional culture in different cultural and contexts, and particularly in Russia. In Russia, because Russian context is very special, because they have no any presuppositions to therapeutic culture. We have Soviet psychology and Soviet counseling, but we have no any psychotherapy like in Western world. Yes, and in this therapeutic culture, I'd like to show you some features of this therapeutic culture. For example, um, uh, uh, emotional reflexivity, because emotions is not are not irrational forces, are not rational forces. Emotion is are the base for the reflection about the world, about the changes, about the future. About the future, because we can predict accurately our future in postmodern world, but we can rely on our emotional experience and to feel what is going on um, uh, around us. And emotions, I think, are becoming the base for the thinking about the world. And emotions are the base for the authentic life. Emotions and really individual emotions um, are the ideals, and emotions are sources for liberations and for the special magic, because new waves of post secular secular movement are not supplied, I think so, modern human beings with really effective means for the coping with stresses, depressions, and so on, and so on. It's a parallel ideology, parallel a religion, I think so. And this emotional tone, emotional culture um, relay on the therapeutic culture. And you see here some more features of modern emotional culture and paradoxical features, because we not only focus on the different for example, psychological events of individual lives, but we really focus on the intensive communication with other people. It's a paradox, one more paradox of the modern emotional culture and therapeutic culture, because uh, therapists usually cope with the fatigue, depression, and now I think so, and vulnerability of different um, different individuals who cope with the acceleration, the values of money, success, and so on and so on and so on. And what is interesting about the this emotional culture and simultaneously therapeutic culture is that the collapse of the distance. And Daniel Bill noticed this uh, in 1976 because paradoxically individualization did not prevent to the very intensive communication between people, and people became closer to to each other paradoxically, uh, uh, simultaneously with the individualization. And in the recent decades, we have no model of the human being that was called as electric man, uh, who connect in every moment with other worlds, cyber worlds maybe, through the gadgets and through the some duties to communicate with many people, and really strangers, not only close people but many strangers from different countries and different societies. But what is interesting that emotions really uh, I identified with emotional intensity of communication, with intensity of the communication. It's maybe that are no these are no really concrete emotions, but really intensive communication gave us the intensive emotional experience. And um, um, I distinguished the two camps of sociologists and really sociologists, uh, for two camps and for two perspectives in considerations of the therapeutic culture. The first camp is generally positive, because they see in the therapeutic culture and modern emotional culture their process of liberation of the every individual potentials, so individual potentials, individual self-realizations, and so on and so on. And they see awakening of their new moral individual agent and new morality, and awakening of the reflexive subject. And they see in the therapeutic culture some features of liberation discourse and liberation itself. as a social process. Uh, on the other point of this continuum, we have the critical camp and negative position toward to the therapeutic culture. For example, Frank Freddy is a famous Hungarian sociologist who lived in Great Britain. He's a very famous specialist in sociology of emotions, and I'm sorry, he's very critical to the therapeutic culture and considered it as a new dictatorship of the power elite. And she think about the therapeutic culture and emotional culture as alienation discourse, and he saw in therapeutic culture is a new form of exploitation and modification of the human behavior, and 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 he see in this therapeutic culture the instrument to lay on the every individual their personal guilt for their social problems, for their unsuccessful life trajectory, and so on and so on. Yes, but many theorists in the middle between these camps, but it's very interesting. Simultaneously, in therapeutic culture, sociologists see the liberation and alienation, and the source of alienation, and why it is so. I'd like to present my own uh, position, and I distinguish some emotional ideals, emotional imperatives, like ideal affects. Uh, Emotional imperative says us what to feel in different situations and in different circumstances, and you see here some of them, and this imperative these imperatives, for example, you see some of them. This is short list of them, and the first one is the rational management of emotion. Therapeutic culture is all about that, how to manage our emotions, how to manage emotion to reach success, and so on and so on. And you see here, for example, the imperative of being happy always, but not in collective, but in individually happy. And you see in late modern society the whole industries of happiness everywhere, in mass culture, and especially in therapeutic culture, because the main task of the psychotherapist, or for example coach coach, to make the patient or the partner to make him happy, to make him happy. And you see here, for example, imperative of emotional balance, the continuation of the imperative of the rational management of emotion, for example. And you see here the very interesting, for example, imperative of excitement, because in um, contemporary circumstances, due to imperative of rational emotional management, people don't know how to feel some emotions, and they are in search how to excite themselves, how to be enthusiastic, how to be happy, how to be or fall in love, or so on and so on. They try to learn how to feel some emotions, and it's very interesting. And many people are in search of, for example, excitement. to get this excitement in, for example, uh, when watching, for example, movie and going to holidays and going to, for example, in some quests and some events, and it's very interesting. And many commercial organizations really reached great financial success on this cultural prescription to be excited, because it is a sign of the authentic love. And based on this imperative, I'd like to show you some paradoxes of the therapeutic culture, and how it is functioning through this management of emotion. And we see in the really different uh, um, a different form of therapeutic culture. For example, coaching, counseling, um, internet, for example, streaming, or so on. In the literature, we see paradoxically, simultaneously, freedom uh, and striving to freedom, emotional liberation, and at the same time we see the imperative of the self-limitation, self-improvement. Yes, it is very interesting how to work with feeling to be better, how to improve myself. And it's not a liberation, it's a kind of violence to the oneself sometime. Yes, I know that therapeutic culture is not homogeneous, but this paradox we see in every of these different narrative discourses, discussions, and different practices for this. Then paradox that the imperative of rational management of emotion, um, and at the same time the search of the authentic feelings. We uh, we like to express our emotion spontaneously at the same time. It is very interesting paradox. I use here and the notion of paradox as an analytical tools to show these contradictions. And intense emotional communication, and insisting on the autonomy and protection of personal boundary, and search of authentic self, and at the same time training in communication skills, and we learn to how to feel and to hear our ego emotions, say directed emotions. It's really a paradox. And um, how they live together, I don't know, but this is the fact. And at the same time, we can observe the cult of the individual authentic self and the individual happiness, and at the same time the cult of empathy. And for example, big corporation claim about the politics of empathy, and to be emphatic to their clients, to everyone. And the best leader is the emphatic leader, and so on. Yes. And another portion of paradoxes is the expressed in the, for example, uh, uh, in cult of the positive feelings and striving to happiness, individual happiness. It is important, and it's not common happiness, but individual happiness. And simultaneously, people suffering from depression, fatigue, vulnerability, burnout, and so on and so on. And these are the subjects of the psychotherapy itself, how to be happy and how to avoid the depression. But at the same time, many, for example, influencers in social media really narrate us their stories about how they overcome difficult situation, how are they vulnerable, how to cope with some events and so on. For example, in Russian context, it is interesting that we have the show in YouTube. Our famous journalist Ekaterina Gardeva conducts some interviews with Russian celebrities, and during all the show, these celebrities really talk about their suffering from their political situation, how they suffer from that Russia began this war with Ukraine, and how they suffer every day, that people are dying. Yes, everyone, for example, I can speak only about intellectuals. We are really suffering from that, but we um, really don't discuss this publicly. But it is very interesting phenomenon. And another paradox, that intensive emotional communication really coexist with the ethics of confidence. Confidence. Uh, Really, we cope with uncertainties. We are vulnerable. We are so fragile, but at the same time, we should be confident, self-confident, to get the success and to overcome, to reach emotional balance and effect, and to use effective emotional management. And what is interesting is that this self-confidence and high self-esteem really coexist with the individual guilt, because therapeutic culture is this really depolitization of their social life, and when social circumstances are perceived like individual fault. Uh, Yes, and another portions of paradoxes you can see here. It's, for example, cult of nostalgia. It is very interesting phenomenon, because and we see it in Russia especially, and at the same time the striving to the personal growth, self-improvement, and self-confidence, and so on, and the really bad longing for a past, and so on. It's very interesting, and really nostalgia is the coping reaction with the bad present times. I really think so, but um, this coexistence paradoxical, and these authentic emotions, authentic self is are the signs of the some sort of infantilism, some sort of young feeling, uh, and but at the same time, the emotional imperative of self-improvement and success and happiness is the sign of adulthood. But now in therapeutic culture, uh, human beings should keep this sincerity, authentic feelings, romanticism with the responsibility and duties of adult life. And this is, I think, Richard Sennett wrote about the tyranny of intimacy. It's about really intensive communication and individual autonomy. Yes, and I'm regularly hear the podcast of Brené Brown, famous American psychologist or social worker, something like that. And she is a very influential, really amazing person who talk usually about emotions, and really she gives us some paradox. You cannot interact with others until you understand who you are, and who you are, and how to understand it. I think it's paradoxical saying. Okay. And on the basis of these paradoxes, I'm sorry, I distinguish some dilemmas how to describe this, for example, emotional culture, not only in nowadays societies, but in every society and in different maybe historical context. For example, I'm interested, for example, in Soviet period, because we know any other tradition closer to the Soviet times, for example. Yes, and mm, mm, I don't want to list all these dilemmas for analyzing such emotional culture, but I'd like to highlight, for example, uh, this dilemma, psychotherapeutic ideology and religions. Very interesting mm, dilemma, because these two discourses contradict each other. They are in competition for the for the for the uh, mental health, I would say. Yes, and partly psychotherapeutic ideology is some sort of substitute of the religious worldview. I think so. Okay, and the last part of my presentation is it's about the Soviet context. It's very interesting context because uh, the main question here is how widespread is the therapeutic culture in Russia, in modern Russia, because we have all of this set of these and agents of therapeutic culture, and we have only emotional tone, and we're giving really great importance to the emotional life and so on. And but at the same time, we have very special tradition, Soviet tradition, and I found that in Soviet times we have really similar imperatives like in Western therapeutic culture. For example, the imperative of improvement, self improvement, and now Russian society is very individualized and atomic too, like, for example, European societies. Uh, and many people in our country really needs some sort of psychotherapy, pop psychotherapy or professional psychotherapy, but the need is obvious. What I'd like to say in the conclusion, I think in Russian society, we now in our special historical circumstances, therapeutic culture did not discover its potential, because uh, uh, um, liberal and free individual is not the subject of our political regime. It's it's not the aim of our political regime, because therapeutic culture is present in our society, but our politicians use the narratives of the therapeutic culture in their own aims. Yes, and all of this in our society um, related to the war conflict, and we should care about the soldiers, and we should care about the all people who um, who provide this war conflict, and so on and so on. And I think that this contradictory discourse of therapeutic culture is very convenient feature to use it uh, in very special political aims. It's very convenient to use some different notion and very paradoxical ones in the benefit to, for example, power elite or dictatorship, and so on and so on. Because it's very benefit for power elite to depoliticize the social life, and to to blame uh, people themselves in their problems, and so on and so on. And the last one. Um, um, I think that the problem of alienation is evident in this ambivalent character of European culture. Um, and At the same time, I'm also ambivalent toward European culture, um, in Russian society we feel sharply, acutely, that we need this Western therapeutic culture to grow these independent, free individuals in our society. But historical circumstances prevent it, and I think we should be careful with this ambivalent character of the therapeutic culture, and this therapeutic culture emotionally carry dangers and good simultaneously. Thank you so much for your kind attention, uh, and if you have any questions, Andrew,
If
I
I
can.
could make a comment, okay. I mean, first of all, thank you very much. You know, this is a very nicely done presentation. It's very thoughtful, and it provokes thought and reflection. So thank you very much. I enjoyed this very much. The I There were a couple of things that stood out for me that I would just like to mention. Perhaps you have a comment. Um, at the very beginning, paraphrased Descartes, right? You know, I feel, therefore I am, right? And the focus on in the individual to the detriment of collective morality was another issue. Um, what I found most thought-provoking, perhaps, was something you mentioned here at the very end, that this serves in many ways, or it can be taken, or the question is, does this serve the depolitization of social life in a way that lends itself to manipulation? There's something, there does seem to be a mechanism inside of modern society, inside of market society, inside of capitalist society that moves in this direction. But at the same time, I wonder if this kind of a process can be encouraged deliberately to depoliticize, public discourse, to depoliticize public life. And of course, if you do that, then you're effectively beyond the control of the population because the population doesn't care about politics anymore. So those were just some thoughts that occurred to me listening to you. If you have anything to say, fine. If someone else has anything to say, fine. But thanks again very much.
Thank you, Andrew. And in Russia, I'd like to note that we have many TV series with their uh, psychotherapists as main protagonist, main personage in this series. It's very interesting because it's very popular series about that, and people really began to think about their traumas, inner conflicts, and so on. And in our society, so widespread on the TV shows, and really people don't think about politics. They think about the personal traumas, about the infancy, and so on and so on, and about their toxic parents and their toxic partners, and so on. It's a very interesting process.
That was also, excuse me, I just jumped in again. The question of whether your psychotherapist can be your best friend. Well, that's a fascinating question, right? Now, I found myself busy in the last week or so because a friend of the family has found themselves in a very difficult kind of situation, and in an attempt to resolve that situation, of course, and they speak with people who are close to them, they speak with relatives, they speak with friends. But really, the person you're supposed to speak to is your psychotherapist. You know, the psychotherapist today has a status in society even higher than the priest used to have in traditional society. And the notion that your psychotherapist, you know, who is a doctor in some sense and who's supposed to be objective in some sense, that a person who is objective in their orientation to you can be your best friend. Oh, that's a fascinating consideration.
Yes, I mean here that some psychologization of different sphere implied the psychologization of the traditional relations between people. And in cities in Russia, in Moscow and St. Petersburg, two capitals or in our country, people feel loneliness and they have any friends, and really sometimes they can talk only to psychotherapist or coach or uh, um, the person like, and have no really life friendship, lovers, relatives. Yes, but in our regions we have really conservative counter discourse, and religion is the main agent in this process. Yes.
May I? Good. Thank you very much. It was really thoughtful. It was really, really good to come and thinking again. And it reminded me also on, surely you mentioned already Marcuse and form, and also fact, as a matter of fact, the dialectics of enlightenment, and also the shaman who was quoted there. And it's the mastery of the self, which is now in the modern society, the medicalization, psychotherapy. And what I thought about, what is the difference between psychotherapy and psychoanalysis, for example? So if I think about From's book, Zen Buddhism and psychoanalysis, so he's coming with a very liberation thinking of it, which, in the matter of fact, you now go further and say, nowadays, it's a colonization of the self via emotions and life experiences. So it's one step further as a matter of fact. Or put it in other words, within this kind of bürgerliche Kälte, bourgeoisie and capitalism coldness, there is implanted a kind of artificial emotion to bring it back, to bring the life back, or as I would quote, the more the living needs to be emphasized, the more the dead it is already. So it's like when you have to emphasize some things very much, it's just an indicator that it's not there anymore, isn't it? What you're saying. I really like this kind of paradoxes which are coming there, and I think it reminded me on a talk of Hermann Schweppenhäuser, which was a colleague of Adorno in Frankfurt this time. And as a student, I had the pleasure to meet him. And he was about getting the exciting about pain, about as a piercings and all these things and all these kind of showing oneself, finding oneself, and this also via pain to feel the living, which is also, it was about 30 years now ago, but I think it's really to think of the modern society, the dead has to feel itself alive. And so it's a kind of what you are showing there. So I have no clue about surely about the Russian society, but I think it's what I was thinking about when you thought about this escape from the collective, the therapeutic culture as a result, and the escape from the collective. I was thinking about the escape from freedom is from. So there might be some kind of, there is a kind of ideology of freedom, and there is a kind of ideology of collectiveness, because in Denmark, we have also the kind of a myth of collective, because everything has to be collective. This is not collective. So it's a kind of social democratic social dream here in Denmark. I don't know how it's in Sweden, but here everything has to be a fellesskap, and there is also some terms for it. So if it's when you invite in school and your children, you have to invite the whole class. You can't invite only one person or two persons, or you invite all females or invite all males, but you can't invite just 2 or 3. It's a no-go. And it's a kind of collective thinking, because you do harm to the collective when you do these things. And I don't know, I have no clue about Russia, but I can think that you have also some mechanisms which are the same, also interesting, let's put it this way. So I was just thinking about that, and that is always a sign of a good paper, I think, when one can find oneself thinking and just the mind is going and working. That is a really, really good thing. So thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Okay, Andrew.
There's a couple of things that came to mind while Dirk was speaking. As I was reflecting on what you had said earlier, Olga. You're talking about, well, you were talking a moment ago about what in effect is the transformation of friendship into a commodity, right? You're lonely, sad, you're isolated. So what do? You go to the doctor, right? Or you go to the psychotherapist, which is usually, at least in most of the societies I've lived in, that's a commodity transaction, right? Somebody pays, not always. And so and which is something that is related to what occurred to me as you were speaking, Dirk. I would suggest that you maybe know more about Russian society in this regard than you suspect, because perhaps Olga is describing, in part of the description is the transformation of Soviet-style society into a commodity society, into a market society, into a capitalist kind of society. And so rather than saying something that's specifically true about a given country, whether that be Russia or the UK or Sweden or something else, this might be perhaps a discussion of a process that's common to many modern societies today, insofar as they are market societies in which are ruled by commodity production. And commodity production, of course, is not production for the sake of something useful. It's production for the sake of the subordination of all of the productive system of society to the creation of private wealth, to the creation of private capital, not for satisfying need. So that's something that's maybe know more about Russian society or society in Eastern Europe in that respect than you think you do.
Maybe I think when I think about, when I now hear it's about Wolfgang Haug wrote something about the aesthetic of commodity, And I think this is the aesthetics of commodity. I think it has something to do with this kind of social and commodity. Yeah, I have to think about it. It's that's also a good sign.
Um, I want to congratulate you, Olga, for your work. I believe it is amazing. I've recently read an article about the new sociology of tastes that is emerging, and they have this very deterministic concept that certain social class will have this kind of taste, certain social class will have this kind of taste, the elites will have a more refined taste, right? I believe this to be very deterministic. I don't buy that very much. And then when you bring this sociology of emotions from this psychological level of how people feel, and then you bring emotions as symptoms evoked by life events, right? So emotions are like the symptoms of life events. However, if everyone is poor, I'm considering, right, a favela in Rio de Janeiro, in contrast to Copacabana and high society, right? So I believe that if everyone is poor in the same context, they may suffer the same life events. So they may have similar emotions because they coexist in a way that certain other social classes don't. However, you say that this happens to everyone equally, but then everyone understands reality individually, and everyone understands the emotion they feel because you cannot feel other people's emotions, right? So in this regard, we understand reality, as you say, by the symptoms of these events, not the events per se, the events in fact, but about the symptoms, about the emotions that these events bring to us. So when you talk about emotion management, I believe it's to be genius, because that's true. If I want tomorrow, if I want to have an exciting thing, I will look for the things that make me excited. And if I want to rest, I will look for, I don't know, sounds on Spotify that will make me more relaxed, or that will make me put me to sleep, for example. So when you bring these emotions managed by this capitalistic modernity, I think it gets more complex, even more complex, because that's a whole complexity in what this entails, both capitalism and modernity. And then I started thinking, just like Andrew brought that sentence, I feel, therefore I am, right? This is just as individualistic as I think, therefore I am, because you cannot feel and you cannot think for other people. They have to think and feel for themselves. This is, I think this is the catch of sociological game, right? Because we needed to understand sociology as a group of people. And when we bring collectiveness into the game, right, and all this associative thinking, like cooperation, associations, unions, and all these organizations that try to think collectively, but you don't know how each individual will feel within. And it's very grateful that you brought this work, because we can understand how the context makes that homogeneous and not the other way around. It's not the people that creates that homogeneously, it's the context. And I think this is quite interesting. I'll let Dirk and Andrew talk, and then afterwards I'll bring this pop psychology and the TikTok and the stories on Instagram, and psychologist and coach, and the coach effect. Everybody wants to be coach about happiness or anything. It's very interesting. Okay, Dirk.
I think also coming back to Marcuse, when he thinks about fantasy cannot be colonized. I think about the question about talking alienation, the question could be raised: when are emotions to be colonized? So is it the real self? Is it the real subject, not object anymore? When is it starting to be an object? When you begin to be able to colonize emotions? When is there a counter emotion coming on? So it's not stable. So this is now when we go further with it. Would be very interesting. So when it's the kind of counter effect is coming on. So meaning talking about alienation, reification, for example, talking about the whole with Adorno and the special thing, the Serlie. When is it the trigger point? When to get alienated or not alienated, when there is a kind of, when this process is coming. That would now be of interest for me now, going further into maybe interviewing or looking at people with rhythm analysis, for example, or whatever. So, but as a kind of, okay, what's going on there, and is it really happening? Is it happening, or when is it happening, and when is the counter effect, like the cave in Plato? When is it when it's a turning point? Lower hand.
I would think the question arises. This is a response to something that Umberto said. I mean, the first question that I want to mention now. You said that you have to think for yourself, right? Of course, you have to think for yourself, but the question, or you have to feel for yourself as well. But the question is, are we talking about a kind of social development in which other people can feel for you, other people can in fact think for you, right? Are we talking about a situation in society in which, well, okay, so this individualism that is tied with this culture of feelings and feeling management, it alienates us from the collective, right? It alienates us from the moral, the moral principles that keep society together, to keep us members of society. And so you're talking about a situation which other kinds of economic forces, consumption binds people to a social whole if morality no longer does it. And so the broad mechanism then would be if friendship is a commodity, or a surrogate kind of friendship is a commodity, and if the production of feelings is tied to commodity exchange, which perhaps can also happen with ideas, right? Our ideas are both is Olga also describing something that applies to ideas and not only feelings? And so, without making a very clear statement here, without making a very clear argument, the question arises is that, well, do forces in society think for you? Can other agents think for you, feel for you? Is what is available for purchase, is what is available for consumption, is that the mechanism that produces ideas? Is that the mechanism that produces feelings? And so, these are the kinds of considerations that come to my mind when I hear people talking about these kinds of issues. Can people think for you? Can people feel for you? Deliberately so.
Okay.
That wasn't very clearly stated.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, my dear colleagues, and only a few remarks on your comments. And Humberto, I think that we need not a capitalism, and especially late capitalism, to manage emotions, because emotion management is a universal phenomenon in every historical period. But capitalism makes this emotion management is more effective, calculated, commodificated, and so on and so on. I think it's unprecedented phenomenon. Yes, and because of that, this motion culture is very special. It's very special, and I really think as a sociologist that really people feel after the social circumstances. They have um, certainly some emotions as a signals about the environment, but society form this emotion. The society form the emotion norms. And I really appreciate your remark about social classes. It's very interesting, and it's a subject of sociologists, and especially in sociology, emotions. And what is interesting about the therapeutic culture is that the American sociologists fixed that this therapeutic discourse penetrated to the lowest classes in America and function as the salvation discourse. They hope for the great success. They fulfill some tasks, some practices, some trainings, and so on, and they really believe to success for success. And really familiar maybe is happening in Russian society. Yes, many people read these pop psychology books, and really in their dream they uh, hope for the success, for the well-being, and so on and so on. But in current social circumstances, is impossible. And certainly you are all right that against the backstage of the therapeutic cultures, um, we see the core conflict of the late modern society, the old problem of individual and collective, and community and society. And this is the gap is more deep and wide between individuals and society. I think so. And we have the politics and neoliberalism to keep society together. And therapeutic culture really is functioning like ideology, like tool for adopting individuals to this mad world, crazy world. I think so. And I think that Frankfurt theorists, Frankfurt philosophers criticize psychoanalysis for this adaptation of the concrete separate individual to the society, to this capitalist society, to be all these contradiction, all this conflict, and to make him healthy, to be productive in this bad capitalist society. And they wanted, I think so, to use psychoanalysis as a tool of liberation for the society as whole. All society needs psychotherapy, from wrote about it. And this psychotherapy is effective when people are involved in collectives. Yes, communitarian socialism was his ideal of the society. Only in these communities they need some sort of psychotherapy. Only in collectives, because it is human. It is human nature. It's, as Marx thinks that um, in free labor and in the community with other people, human being can make can reach self-realization. I think so. Thank you so much for your comments.
When you talk about psychoanalysis, as I recall it in the history of psychoanalysis, it was really critical in the beginning with respect to the bourgeoisie society. But after World War II, when the escape to the US came, there was an alignment to capitalist society, as you also pointed out, as to align to the culture, align to be productive and so forth. So, but it was, before it was a critical stance, and it is a little bit is left. So not a lot.
I think this is a very fructiferous field. I think it's a very new field in sociology, and I believe this to have to give you and us, of course, lots of opportunities for research, because we're still instrumentalizing conceptually the field of emotions, especially when you bring therapeutic culture, because we always believe that therapeutic culture at first it gave me the idea of a very hurt culture, a very hurt society, a society that needs to get better from something that's causing them ill. This is why it's therapeutical, right? We already come from a place where society is damaged in a way that they need to cure itself. So it's very interesting when you think that we sell and commercialize palliative programs and medication and remediations, right? Like we never go to the root of it, of what's causing. This is why I said that there is this life events, and then the emotions they feel, and then we understand from the emotions, not from the life events. So it's quite interesting when you bring that, because each one is trying to cure himself or herself, right? And everybody that thinks collectively, people will point to you and say, oh, you're a socialist, you're a communist. Just like happens in Brazil. You cannot think for other people, otherwise you're already left. And people will point out at you and say, okay, so I don't know, grab a homeless and take them home, or share your salary with everyone, and these ideas that people conceive. And I think it's very interesting. It's very interesting how people make them logic, try to turn emotions into logic things.
It strikes me that the therapeutic culture the aim of therapeutic culture may not be to heal society, but to foster particular kinds of feelings, particular kinds of orientations on the part of individuals so that they adapt to the society better. And of course, the society to which they're adapting is, we're all talking about capitalist society here, right? Commodity exchange. And so rather than the aim, perhaps the aim is not to heal something, but to make sure that things move in a certain direction. As an aside, I've always found it odd that in the most capitalist country of all, the United States, nobody talks about capitalism. Right? They talk about democracy. They talk about freedom, right? But they don't talk about capitalism. They don't mention the economic reality in which they're living. Well, I'm not quite sure what that has to do with the discussion right now, but it always struck me that people were doing something that they were supposed to be doing anyway, somehow to make things work a little bit better, to oil the wheel, to grease the wheels, to oil the gears so that things move more smoothly. Not that they move in a better direction, but that they move more smoothly in the direction in which they are already oriented.
Okay. Yes, but I don't think that's therapeutic culture in the pure area, because I'm in Russia, and I know that therapeutic culture for many of us is the liberation source of liberation, and source of self-care, and source of awakening the individual potentials at the same time. And for example, in my university, We have some prescriptions for the care of the mental health of our students, and every teacher should talk with students about their their feelings, their emotions, their difficulties, and so on and so on. And I would say that I like it because I like
Mhm.
I love my students and I want to them the better future. And it's for Russian people, it's a good thing because we have only a short period of fresh air, and now return back to the double thinking, collective, so-called collectivism, and so on and so on. Yes, and I hope that we use these advances of the therapeutic cultures for our young people, for example, not for the post-Soviet people.
Mhm.
Yes, because they feel, for example, nostalgia, because they really need for the coping strategy with their this present time, this bad present times, with this crisis, with this collapse of the future of our country, and they feel nostalgia, for example. But therapeutic culture is about their changes in mind and the striving for the self-realization, self-care, and so on. And then I think it's useful for our people in Russia. And I really said that maybe this development of therapeutic culture and maybe mm, their good sides, so-called good sides of this may be blocked nowadays in Russia. Okay, I see it like that.
Mhm.
Yes, but in general, of course, it's a new spiral of alienation in terms of the uh, Marxist perspective, Frankfurt School perspective, is a new spiral, new round of alienation,
Mhm.
because we're not possessors of our feelings now, and
It reminds me in a certain way, listening to you speak just now, reminds me in a certain way of the way things were in the United States during the Vietnam War period. The things that people did um, to try to promote different principles, different attitudes, different orientations, different political policies, much of it connected with what they spoke of as counterculture, right? A way of fostering, promoting individualism and individual character, morality, and so on. The where that takes you, we don't know where that takes you, right? Because in the United States, it didn't take people where they thought they were going. It took them into another series of political crises, military crises, and so on. Perhaps it can go in another direction. I suppose that's one thing that's one thing we have to find out, isn't it? Whether we can go into another direction.
Um, I believe that this meeting was better than I thought, and was very good and very productive. And actually, Olga, if you want someone to read out your work, please count on me. I am much interested in reading it.
mhm.
If you want someone to,
I have an article in Russian about emotional imperatives, but I hope that I write the article about that in English. In English, I hope for that, but I'm so busy now. But now I'm writing about the nostalgia for the for the textbook or something, and about the dangers of nostalgia. And maybe after that, I try to write about all this, all this.
Very good, very good, very good.
And I can share the presentation of this if you want.
Oh, please, please, please send it to the Talking Alienation email and I get it.
I think what would be also very interesting would be the kind of the production of emotions, how Andrew said it so nicely. Also, we're done with former regimes, as I think the kind of authoritarian, also Soviet regime and so forth. I think this is the kind of how it's now done. So I think also it might be very interesting to see the differences of dealing with or influencing emotions, productions of emotions within the kind of difficult societal context. That would be also pretty interesting.
Yes, yes. I'm interested in this issue too. It's very interesting.
The thing about that interests me is when I think about production of ideas, production of emotions, what fascinates me about that is who's producing the emotions. Is it the individual or somebody else? But before we break off this, when we're done with a discussion of the presentation today, I should say keep it brief, but I should say a few words about RC36 and some things that we have to do. So.
Okay, I believe Olga, is there something else you would like to add before we close your presentation time, and then we can start talking about RC36 for a bit?
Well, a very short bit as far as I'm concerned. If Olga has no more comments, then I'll just change the subject briefly. We have some things we have to do in the coming weeks and months to prepare for the World Congress. It's not clear to anybody at this point how many people are actually going to go to Melbourne, Australia for this Congress. But there are, close to 5,000 people, well over 4,000 people who have registered, right? And 3,000 of those have said that they're actually going to be in Melbourne. But be that as it may, we will have to have a business meeting, and the business meeting is connected with elections, and elections is connected with proposing officers and the sort. I should have I should have pushed for this some weeks ago, but frankly, I think that there's still enough time to get things done in the proper way, and all of us have been busy in one way or the other. But what we should do, perhaps the simplest thing is this, sometime in the coming days, we can do this by email, agree upon a time when we can have a Zoom session, 45 minutes, an hour, something of the sort. In fact, have a meeting, right? Of a committee that's working. We're all members of the. Well, actually, Umberto is not a member of the board, but he's certainly become a very active member of RC36, and the other three of us are board members. Vesla was prevented from being here today because of PhD business at the institute. But I know that this is something that she and I have spoken of as well. And so, finding some time, sometime soon, agree upon a date in the coming days, and we can have a little Zoom session and talk about these things in a little more organized fashion. So I'm not sure if I'll, send out anything like a little agenda. The idea is basically we have to run elections, we have to prepare for a business meeting, that's sort of the bottom line, right?
Yeah. So I already booked the hotel and the flight, so everything's paid for.
Yeah.
So I will be there.
Yeah. Vesla and I plan to be there as well. You just have to do it, right? If you have a certain responsibility, you just have to do it, right? It's
there.
The the choice of Melbourne, whatever it was, 8 or 9 years ago for a venue for this, not turned out to be it's turned out to be a difficult decision for a lot of people now, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, even
Yeah.
last year, even last year, the air prices, yeah.
Yeah, I think also it's kind of what kind of universities give the money. So
Yeah.
it's also like who is coming and who has the chance to join.
Yeah.
And the good thing is also with Zoom, one can just overcome the computer. I think it's better than it was before, because then also if it's time-wise, money-wise, or whatever-wise, people can join. They have a possibility. That's good. I think that's a really good thing.
There was actually resistance within ISA. Resistance, I guess, actually with the Melbourne people to have a hybrid conference, to have some.
Yeah,
but there was.
But you exclude too many people. I think it's.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
But
I
anyway,
also like people to see in person, but it's not fair. It's much fairer if you have the other possibility too. So.
Yeah. There's, I mean, it's always nice to do some things in person. You want to even feel that sometimes you have to do them in person to meet somebody, to talk to somebody, right? But in this day and age, and in the present circumstances, the current circumstances this year, you just have to be able to have an alternative. There just has to be an alternative.
Andrew, as a matter of another question, not Melbourne-wise, but talking alienation wise, it's like, did we get further with the publications, or was it kind of a letter for the publisher? It was we wanted to write something. What was it?
Yes, I am responsible for publications. We had Vesela's idea and also the RC36 idea. We have already received the works from Olga, from yes, from you. Also, I have my work already there, but we have to, I apologize for that. Because I needed to revise everything, put them together, and then we go on. For this past months, I couldn't do anything. I was
I think I don't think that I give you a paper. I gave you an abstract maybe, but not a paper.
Wait, let me get it here.
Did I give a paper? That's interesting.
It's the first paper I don't remember you've written.
Oh.
Wait. Oh no, only your abstract. Yes. Not the paper.
What was the title of the abstract? Please remind me.
Wait.
That's bad stuff.
Nah. Because then I can write it. I just have to write.
Wait just a moment.
So it's not you to blame, it's me to blame.
I'm in the wrong email. I have 4 emails open. Just a moment.
So we do it later, doesn't matter. I won't write the article tonight.
Okay.
One thing that has to be done before the World Congress is that we have to file a report about our activities. And a couple of these are missing because, well, we all know, what happened with some of the elected officials. They ran into problems, and so I just have a couple of notes, right? It doesn't have to be a long statement, but frankly, I can't even remember some of the things that have happened in I think the last time a report was filed was maybe the last World Congress, or thereabouts, right? And we're supposed to do this every year, right? To me, or whoever is the Secretary Treasurer is supposed to see to it that a report of activities is filed every year. And so I might ask some of you to,
I can do that. I can do that.
Oh, okay, good. Why don't if you want to do that, then we can combine any ideas that we might have and do it together. That'll be easier that way. I was frankly hoping that you might volunteer. So.
Brilliant, brilliant. Just a moment, because now I need to get my life organized. Just a moment. Okay, can by Sunday, how fast does it have to be? What's the deadline?
The deadline was about 2 years ago. Right? So
Okay. All right, so we're going to include all the events from 2021 and 2022 as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we have to report for the period that we're currently in, right? And it begins somewhere around 2019 or 2020, right?
Brilliant,
So,
brilliant.
Yeah. Okay.
So by Saturday, I'll
Sunday would
send
be
you like
fine.
okay, Sunday. Thanks. Thank you. By Sunday, then I'll send you like a sketch. Okay, a first brief. All right, and then you add up your opinions and ideas.
Okay. We also this gives us an opportunity to say what members have published as well, right? But I don't have a record of what individuals have published. I know what because there are people in the committee who publish, right? But don't necessarily tell us about it, right? They
That's true.
And Olga, there's a conference next month, right, at your university, correct?
Yes, yes.
I traded a couple of letters with you some months ago, but then that just got lost in other things. If I come up with a brilliant idea that I can present in 15 or 20 minutes, I might actually present that to you as, in any case, I think I'm interested in registering for the conference and attending in some way digitally. We have to not only in the past has good work been done at the conference, but we also have to help each other here in a difficult period to support each other.
Mm-hmm. I can help you if you need, and I don't know how many English speaking sessions we have now, but we have really impressive plenary speakers on that conference, and not only from the Russia, but from the all over the world, from the India, Korea, China, and from the America and Great Britain. Perfect. And so on. Perfect. Yes,
that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yes, if you register, you maybe you can enjoy some speakers, because I was impressed by this.
Some of us in the last couple of years were told explicitly that you weren't supposed to do this and you weren't supposed to do that, for political reasons, right? For the in light of the current circumstances. But I've not been told that this week. I've not been told that recently. So I think we can do something. At least attend. I'm looking forward to doing that at the very least. So it's scheduled to begin in 2 weeks or so, 10th of April, something like that, or
from the 4th or 4th of April up to 14th of April. Okay. Some 10 days long.
Okay, so the 4th is actually that's next Tuesday, isn't it? Yes. This was a cloudy day, and I'm sitting in front of a window, and just as we've been talking, the sun has come out, and so I can't see myself. I can't see the screen in front of me.
Great.
All right, everyone. So I think this is it. I You have no idea how my screen is right now. I tried some new visualizations from Zoom, and you're all sitting on chairs like in a theater, and it's interesting. You have no background, so it's interesting. I only see you. Oh, I hate technology. Very good. Thank you all for being here. It was very productive. Um, I believe that we should have some, in my opinion, we should have some other meetings apart from the seminar sessions, so we can discuss a little further RC36 events, publications, and everything else we need to do, especially now that we're approaching June and Melbourne.
Yeah.
So if you have any ideas, you can write to Talk Alienation or to my email. Okay, I'll write to you as well. We can copy everyone, and then we can schedule from that. Our next seminar session is on April the 25th. And no, April the 26th.
Okay.
Yes, yes. And I just want to ask you again to think, to sleep on it, if we could call Michael Paris once again, because in his special event, it was in January. I remember I went to the hospital the day before, and I couldn't be there, and I believe only Andrew was with Michael Paris, and I felt bad for it. So I wanted to reschedule with him the event.
Well,
Yes.
actually, I had a problem hosting the meeting because of because of my access rights, and so Michael was there, I was there. We chatted for about half of an hour, and I could not conveniently, admit other people into the discussion, and so actually, I think Google changed some security settings last November, I believe, having to do with Google Workspace. And since then, I've had trouble even sending mail to Google, to Gmail addresses, right? I can only send to a Gmail address at the moment if I send it from a Gmail address, and it has something to do with well, it dates from these changes, security changes in November, but there are other things involved as well. But the point is, it's not just your responsibility. I was not able to do it because of access right issues. So there were people there to meet, but I wasn't able to pull off the meetings. But I would support Perez having an opportunity to speak with us if it could be arranged. So, certainly.
Dirk?
The 26th, I will come half an hour later because I have a meeting until 16:30, and because I can't. I have to go to these meetings because it's university politics. I can't miss it. So it's I have to take part.
Okay.
So I will come a little bit later, but I will come. So I will stay. Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, I guess this is it. So we keep exchanging mails, and then we set up a date for a meeting. Next week, I'll be all full because on Tuesday I'm moving to Madrid. So until Thursday, I'm getting set in Madrid. I spend 6 months. My husband is going to be 6 months single here in Rio. And well, I'm also going to be single. It's a two-way street. I'm kidding.
We are looking forward meeting you in Copenhagen.
Oh, please, please. My pleasure. I'm honored. I'll be honored. And this is it. I am closing the recording. Thank you very much, everyone.